Om Shanti. Bienvenue à tout le monde, à toutes et à tous. Chaleureusement bienvenue. So warmly welcome everyone to the shores of silence. Oui, aux rives du silence. So welcome to this program that L'Emergence, one of the Brahma Kumari centers, is putting on this today. And this is really an opportunity for us as we experience such a wintry day to perhaps not get away from it all, but go towards, return to that which I think our heart has been calling for. So an opportunity to refresh, to reinvigorate, to remember, to reconnect at the wonderful shores of silence that I think we all have somewhere inside of us a deep pull towards. So this is the theme for today, and we have a very special guest who will be our guide on this getaway or get to, and I'll be introducing him a little later. But first of all, just to mention that, as always, we are a Brahma Kumari center, so connected, an associate center with this spiritual organization that has as its aim to nourish, to support, to enrich, and to liberate the full potential of every human being. And so this is an opportunity for that, to really experience the richness that we have within ourselves and be able to bring it into our daily lives. So to take us a little closer to that wonderful spiritual vacation spot that we'll be visiting today, those shores of silence, we'll begin, as always, with a meditation. And so I'm going to hand you over to Lynn, who will take us closer to those shores. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Om Shanti. First, I will make sure that the body is comfortably seated, resting on the chair I am sitting on, letting go of all the tensions, completely surrendering myself, while making sure that the breathing is regular and calm. I let go of my concerns and focus only on the present moment. I am safe. I am present. I am here and now in the body, which is becoming more and more relaxed, calm, peaceful, silent, without any agitation. My thoughts are starting to slow down, and the mind becomes more and more peaceful. I let my mind rest. As when the waters of a lake become so calm at dusk, there is no movement on the surface. The lake becomes like a mirror where the surrounding nature is reflected. The sky, the trees, the sunset. I am in harmony with this nature that I create in my mind. And an atmosphere of deep peace and silence emerges with the feeling of a great serenity. Everything becomes still, completely still, and deeply comforting and gentle to the soul. I feel peace, silence, stillness, such gentleness. Peace, silence, stillness, gentleness. Peace, silence, stillness, gentleness. I want to keep this experience alive, close to my heart, for as long as possible, and return to it as often as possible, as often as I wish. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much for those words that have brought us ever closer to the shores of the ocean. And so now it is my great pleasure to introduce us to our guide for today, Yogesh Sharda, joining us all the way from Istanbul, Turkey. And it is really our great fortune to have such an experienced guide. I've had the pleasure of knowing Yogesh for a number of years now and have always been struck by a wonderful balance that he has of spirituality, humor, depth, and lightness. And so just to let you know a little bit about him, Yogesh was born in Malawi, Africa, but raised in England. And he has spent the last, I don't even know if it's over 10 years or more, in Turkey, guiding activities at the Raj Yoga Center there, but also bringing this, if you will, to a wider audience, these principles and ideas, as a personal development trainer, and guiding over hundreds of workshops, seminars, and courses in a variety of domains: businesses, hospitals, universities, youth organizations, etc., throughout the world. And so it's really with great pleasure that I hand you over to some very experienced hands, a wonderful guide who will now take us to those beautiful shores of silence. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A warm welcome on this snowy day here in Montreal. I don't know if you have snow there. You might have to unmute.
Yes, hello and good evening here from Istanbul. Big thanks, Tanya, for such a warm and generous introduction. I hope I can live up to to it.
No question. So I will hand it over to you. And again, very warm welcome and great thanks and appreciation that you're joining us here today. Over to you.
Thank you. It's really my honor to be amongst you. I do remember being in Montreal. I think it was almost 7 years ago exactly. I had a fabulous time there with the team over there. And so great pleasure to be with you online today. And when the topic was shared with me, the shores of silence, I felt this is really the whole aim of this life of a meditator, to build silence into our lives and to make silence the basis of everything we do, to allow this energy of inner silence to be the energy which makes things happen. And our aim is to go onto the shores, but then also to go a little bit deeper into the experience of silence. And I came into this study of Raj Yoga meditation when I was a child, around 8 or 9 years old. And as I grew up, there was one thing I was very surprised at, that how people give relatively little attention to their inner world and most of their attention to the outer world, the world of work and family and travel, physical health. Of course, that's important, but then the inner world of our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences, and so on, so relatively under looked after. And therefore, I find people generally have a difficult relationship with silence. So to some degree, the silence has been given a bad reputation. For example, when we remember the dead of wars in the past, we are asked to be silent for 2 minutes or 3 minutes with our heads bowed down. And so their silence is partly associated with some kind of sorrow. Also, it may happen if a child is misbehaving. The parents may say, go to your room and be silent, don't speak. So silence has also been used as a kind of punishment. And in some places, if a person is quiet, it is considered there's something wrong with you. Why don't you speak? You should be speaking more. And so silence is something very beautiful and something which each person needs. It helps to nourish the soul. So what is silence? How does it work? And why do we need it? Now, of course, the obvious type of silence is the silence of physical sound. And even that is nourishing for us. So for example, especially if you live in a big built-up city, to escape to the hills or to the forest enables you to experience some peace of mind, some physical silence. Your mind is away from the stimulus of situations and people around you. But the kind of silence that we are more interested in is the silence of the mind. Now, what does that mean? Well, we also have to define then what is noise of the mind. And in simple terms, the noise of the mind is too many thoughts, too many emotions, too many desires. So when these are running around in the mind, it creates an internal noise. And that noise blocks us from being able to access our inner wisdom, to listen to our own inner voice. Now, one of the things which happens as the mind becomes quiet is that you can listen to your own inner voice. You feel very clear-headed and you know exactly what you need to do in a situation. And that's why I believe every person needs to build more silent moments into their daily life. Now, we know, for example, that science and technology is always upgrading itself. So think, for example, of our mobile phones, which is perhaps the device which is most beloved by most people. And for some, it's as important as an internal organ. Perhaps some individuals may even prefer to lose a kidney than to lose the mobile phone. And of course, it's much more than a phone. But yet we know that every few months or even every few weeks, a better version, a higher version comes out, which can do many more functions than the previous version. So if science and technology can be upgraded, then what about the mind? Can my mind be upgraded such that I have a greater sense of a natural self-control, such that I am able to withdraw from the world of sound and action and enter that silent and sacred space within myself where I can just be at peace. The power of silence is described as the greatest of all powers, because when the mind is silent, we are able to have insights. Even great scientists who have made wonderful discoveries, artists, singers, poets, they've been able to access their excellence through the silence of the mind. A moment of inspiration, a moment of insight, and they're able to see what they couldn't think of. Now, in our lives too, as we learn how to use the power of our thoughts in the most optimum manner, we realize there's actually no need to think too much. In fact, I love the quote that a life of thinking too much is not a life at all. So just as with our physical hands and arms, feet and legs, you use them when you need to. For example, right now, I think all of us are sitting down, either on a chair or a sofa or on the floor. And so we're not using our legs. But when we need to move, then we use them. We use our hands and our arms when we need to. And when there's no need, then we rest them. Now, the mind too is a tool which has to be used correctly. When I need to think, when I need to understand something, when I need to remember, when I need to analyze, let me use those inner faculties of my mind and my intellect. And when I have done that, then let me withdraw and rest my mind. This is part and parcel of the life of a meditator. And by doing that, we are saving the energy of our thoughts. And that thought energy, which we save, then accumulates within the soul as the power of silence. The greatest need we all have today is to learn how to be able to take care of this thing called the mind. Now, just as any machine requires proper use and proper care, so too does the mind. There is a mechanism by which it works. Now, think, for example, of any machine you buy, whether it's a car, washing machine, phone, laptop. But along with that, you receive a user guide. And that tells you how to maintain the machine and how to use it correctly. And so the question arises, where is the user guide for the mind? Now, because we tend not to have one, we launch ourselves into life mislearning how to use the mind. And as I mentioned earlier, the worst habit which we fall into is the habit of overthinking. Why is this the worst habit? Because when we overthink, then we are throwing away this precious, precious energy of thought power. And the result is the mind becomes tired. And when the mind is tired, patience level goes down, tolerance level goes down, and we find it difficult to handle the challenges of life, and especially to handle people whose personalities may be a little different to ours. So the good news is that the opposite is also true. As we learn to conserve the energy of the mind, which is essentially thought energy, every aspect of my life will improve. My relationship with myself, my relationships with other people, and my ability to handle situations and circumstances. These are the three things we all have to face every day: the self, other people, and situations and circumstances. So let's begin to look at how to make the mind silent, and also why is it not silent already? What is this noise about? Why does it make so much noise? Now, the mind has been described in various traditions using many metaphors. For example, it is said the mind is like a wild horse. It runs and it runs during the day, during the night, aimlessly. It's a danger both to itself and also to other people. The mind is like a child. Now, on the one hand, a child can be very sweet and cute, very lovely, but also a child only knows what she or he wants, not what she or he needs. And therefore, both of these examples, the horse and also the child, indicate an unnecessary production of desires. When the mind is producing desires and we chase after them, that causes tiredness. I'd like to show you a few slides which will help me to illustrate some ideas. So let me see if I can just share these on the screen with you. Okay, I think you can see this. So here are various forms of noise which take us well away from the shores of silence. So we can see that to some desire, I say temporary because there's another kind of desire as well, which we'll look at in a moment. But let's look at how noise happens within the self. Let's say you want something, but somebody stops you from getting what you want. Somebody blocks that from happening. So what may happen to the energy of that temporary desire? It can change into anger. An unfulfilled desire then becomes anger, and we know anger is a very powerful emotion. And if I continue to direct anger towards a particular individual who blocked me from getting something, then that anger may take on the form of hatred towards an individual. Now, how damaging is this energy for myself, let alone having those kinds of emotions towards somebody else? But for my own self, if I'm carrying this energy within me, then it's bad, of course, for the mind, but also bad for the body. Another form of internal noise: I want something, I have a desire for something, I cannot have it, but there seems to be no one to blame. So what happens to that energy of that desire? There's no one to blame. For example, want to go somewhere and the weather is such you cannot. So the energy of that desire will then change into disappointment or frustration. And if I keep remembering those scenarios in my life when things did not work out for me, then I can drive myself into feeling a little depressed. And there's a third example here. Let's say I want something, but somebody else gets what I want. And how do you feel then? Somebody else gets what you want, then the energy of that desire changes into jealousy. And jealousy, of course, is a very dangerous energy, which leads to all kinds of antisocial behaviors. So we can see how these emotions exist in people around us to some degree, and maybe within us as well to some degree. But where do they all come from? They're all rooted in this thing called temporary desire. And so the question arises then, why do we have all of these temporary desires, this noise of the mind? Why does it come about? Now, chasing after a temporary desire is like chasing after your shadow. You can never catch it. The faster you run, the faster the shadow runs away from you. But the thing to do is to stop chasing, to turn around, and to walk in the opposite direction. And then the shadow begins to follow you. Now, how is this connected to inner silence? When the noise of our desires and emotions and unnecessary thoughts begins to reduce, then we can taste, we can feel that beautiful taste of the silence of the mind. And the wonderful thing is that this is a return journey. It's not that I am naturally an anxious person. I'm naturally angry. It's my nature to be over-emotional. No, that's not the norm. That's the norm we may have created. But the true norm, the real natural state of the inner self, is very beautiful, very pure, very divine. And we are making a return journey back to experiencing that. Take the example of water. If you were to heat water, boil water, of course it reaches a high temperature, but then when you stop heating it, it'll return back to its normal temperature. So too, when the mind gets inflamed by the heat of desires and these emotions like anger, etc., then we experience a form of dis-ease or discomfort. But then we wish to return back to that state of peace, balance, and inner silence. And so what do we need for that? So now comes the next little diagram to show you. Yeah, so I think you can see this. This really is, for me, a summary of the whole journey back to silence and the journey also to true inner prosperity. So what we see here at the bottom of this diagram, which is about awareness, is here our awareness is very limited. Our awareness of life is limited. which means we see things through a very, very limited or skewed perspective. And the result of this is it creates a deep inner feeling of insecurity. So, for example, we have a limited awareness about justice. What is right? What is wrong? Is there true justice in life or isn't there? For example, we have a limited awareness or understanding about life and about death. We have a limited understanding about how to relate to other people. Many, many aspects of limited awareness we could explore. But in essence, when we see life through a very narrow slit, then the natural feeling is insecurity. And what do we do when we feel insecure is we will try to hold on to something. For example, as it's a snowy day in Montreal, if you were walking out in the street and you begin to slip, you naturally and instinctively, your hands will go out to grab something to break the fall, to feel secure once again. The same thing happens with the mind. When we feel insecure, the mind holds on to people, to ideas, to self-image, to certain emotions, and so on. And as a result of holding on for a while, we then begin to create a dependency. And where there's dependency, after some time, it becomes a full-blown attachment. And I feel I cannot live without the source of my attachment. And one thing is for sure, that somewhere at the roots of all suffering, we will find attachment. So when we are living in this condition, which I would say is the general condition of humanity, the mind is full of noise. The noise of insecurity, anxiety, fear of losing something or someone, or sometimes feelings of injustice. And that noise takes us far away from the peace and silence which is actually at our core. Now, the kind of silence we are interested in is not the empty silence of just emptying your mind, but it's a full silence. So we have to be clear about these two things. Now, often the example is given of a container. Let's say you have a tin, and inside that you place a few stones. And if you shake the tin, it creates a lot of noise. So that noise is, as it is said, empty vessels make most noise. That noise is because there's so much space within that tin, which is not full. So how to stop the noise? Either you take all the stones out, the pebbles out, and then of course there's no noise, or you fill it up completely. So when you then shake it, there is no noise. Now the empty silence is a kind of silence of sadness, melancholy, a negative silence. But I believe the silence of spirituality is a very full silence. It's the result of being internally full. And what that leads to is then the other end of this diagram, which is where our awareness is in the unlimited. When my awareness is in the unlimited, the result is I will feel very secure. And these I find are the key words: insecurity and security. Where I feel internally secure, the mind becomes quiet. The mind does not create unnecessary thoughts. It's like the child has become satisfied. I feel secure. And when you're secure, what do you naturally do? You would naturally let go. The mind begins to let go of unnecessary thoughts and desires. And here, one of the important principles we realize with letting go is 3 words in English anyway, which I find very, very powerful. And they are, nothing is mine. A very powerful principle to make the mind quiet. Nothing is mine. If nothing is mine, it means I can lose nothing. And if I can lose nothing, this then becomes the basis of security. So when I let go, when the mind lets go, then you experience true freedom. And where there's freedom, then there can be real happiness. Only where there's freedom does real happiness arise. And so the question, how do you go from this limited awareness to this unlimited awareness? And so the diagram shows us that the energy which propels us into the unlimited is spiritual knowledge. And this is the fuel which is required, really, to free us from the traps that the mind gets into. And the mind is used to, getting into traps by too involved, for example, in situations which are not my responsibility, or being over concerned with what other people think about me. These are all sources of noise of the mind. Now, how to be free of these is we explore the first truth. So with regard to spiritual knowledge, what is the first truth which we need to explore and really to go deep into and experience? So that's what I'm now going to come to. But as our topic is silence today, let's just have 1 minute to be quiet together. Okay? So just take 1 minute just to be quiet. Just allow your thoughts to settle down. Be still. Okay. Thank you. I think everybody did very well. So silence achieved. Tanya, I think we can probably finish now as we have reached silence. Just kidding. So let's have a look at how to live from this silent space. It's nice to escape to the mountains. It's nice to go to the forest. It's nice to be by the beach when there's not a crowd there. But then, of course, you have to go back to the city or wherever you live. How to bring the mountain into your home. How to carry the beach or the forest into your front room and to live from there all the time. This is one of the things I really appreciate about this Raja Yoga meditation. It's meditation for practical life, for everyday living. It's not about escaping life or rejecting life, but it's how to live whilst fulfilling your responsibilities and duties. And so let's see where noise comes from and where silence exists. So here now is the next model to show us 3 levels of our self-identity, where we are living from. So as you can see, at the very center is the being zone, the being part. We'll come back to that in a moment. But then around that is the doing zone. And so this means all the things that we do, for example, your job, your relationships you have, certain responsibilities you have. So most people spend their thought energy wrapped around the things that they do. They're doing-based identities. And further than that, also wrapped around the things that I have. So for example, what do we have? Well, we have a nationality. We may have a profession, a certain role, certain titles. We may have a position in society or even within our own family. We have possessions, we have property, and the list goes on and on and on. So basically what has happened to humanity is that we tend to live in the doing zone and in the having zone, which means the energy of our consciousness is occupied with what I do and what I have. And when we do that, then this creates this thing called ego. And where ego exists, then ego-based emotions will naturally be generated. In fact, all of those difficult emotions which create noise in the mind, as we looked at anger, irritation, frustration, worry, anxiety, all of those are ego-based emotions. So as long as we're living within the ego-based identities, there's actually never going to be the experience of true silence within the self. And what we learn in Raja Yoga meditation is step back from the having zone and the doing zone and come to your very core. Come to the being zone. It is here within the being zone that there is true peace. It is here that there is true self-respect. It is here that there is true joy. And this, in essence, is the whole journey of spirituality, self-awareness, and Raja Yoga meditation. living in the being zone, staying there, not just experiencing it temporarily, but learning to be there. And that's what we describe as living in the state of soul consciousness. Now, I make a distinction between people who meditate and people who are meditators. Many people meditate to relax, to deal with the challenges of life, to handle stress, and that can be fine. If somebody wishes to do just that, that's also fine. But to be a meditator is much, much more than that. To be a meditator means it's a lifestyle. And that means as I go through day-to-day life, one part of me is naturally vigilant and checking to see what am I doing with my thought energy. Take the example of an athlete who wishes to win the gold medal in the races. So for her or for him, eating healthy will be a lifestyle. She or he will naturally be aware what I eat, when I eat, how much I eat, etc. Even if you offered a wonderful dish to such a person, they may say no thanks, or it's not time for me yet. Why? Because for an athlete to maintain optimum weight is essential. In the same way as meditators, we are mental athletes. As we go through the day, we're paying attention. Am I thinking too much about some situation? Are my thoughts locked in the past about something which has gone, is finished? Am I driving myself into worry about something which may or may not happen? So there's a natural quality control taking place to regulate, to coordinate, to almost to supervise the way my mind is producing thoughts. And if we are doing that, we naturally are able to maintain that state of inner silence. It won't be that I get noisy, I get upset, I get stressed, and now let me relax and do some meditation and feel good. And then after a while, again, getting upset or getting stressed, and then let me meditate and feel good. Okay, that may happen in the early stages, but the aim is to naturally have that awareness. So I have a checking going on. And if I notice I'm thinking too much, then let me be self-regulating, self-policing and say, okay, mind, full stop. That's it, no more. These are the practices which enable our thought energy to accumulate. And I would suggest 2 words, both beginning with E in English, for our words, but then upgrade it and for our thoughts as well. Starting with words is easier, of course. And so first is make my words more essenceful. So instead of saying something to someone in 50 words, can I say the same thing in 30 words? Can I be more essenceful? If I'm doing that, I'm saving the energy of 20 words. And by saving energy, naturally, the power of silence accumulates in the mind. So this is a practice each one of us can do, is to consciously be more essenceful when we speak to other people? Secondly, can I be more economical with my words? So take, for example, how you use your money. Now, all of us are, pay attention to how we spend our money. Let's say you want to buy, a jacket or shoes somewhere. So you will think, where should I go? You wouldn't just go to any shop. You may shop around and choose the shop which gives you the best price. And you may wait until the sales are on. So that's called being economical. And the same with our words, that what I speak, when I speak, who I speak to, let me be discerning so I don't need to overspeak. So practicing these two principles, essence-full and economical, notice how you naturally save the power of your thoughts, which accumulates as the power of silence. The result of that silence is then you'll be able to use it in other areas of your life where you found you were lacking in personal power. For example, where you didn't have the willpower to do something, now you feel you have willpower. Where you are unable to tolerate a person or a situation, now you feel this extra strength to be able to tolerate. Where is that extra strength coming from? It's the result of the power of silence which you're accumulating in your mind. And that's the result of not wasting your energy by practicing being essence-full and economical. And this is why a silent mind is able to see solutions. When the mind is rushing, you can't see a solution to a problem, even if that solution is standing right in front of you, even if that solution is doing jumping jacks in front of you and slaps you in the face and says, "Here I am," but we cannot recognize it. When the mind is silent, quiet, the inner eye is open, and I can see exactly what I need to do in a situation. Now, just going to show you one more quick slide before I wrap up this part. And this is really to do with spiritual pollution. It's connected with the doing zone and the having zone. So this central circle, well, this star in the center represents the soul, the inner self, the inner being of light. And this circle represents the Atma sphere. Atma is soul. So atmosphere, the sphere of energy which the soul generates around itself. And what we have done over the years is we have polluted our inner atmosphere with all of these labels and identities which are connected to our bodily and our physical identity, as mentioned before. So some are to do with the things I do, some to do with the things I have. So you can see the name of the body, the age, current age, race, gender, height, weight, and then further things, the nationality that you have, the religion, the family you're in, the profession, the status you may have, and even skills, talents, qualifications, achievements. So all of those things we have placed into our consciousness, into our atmosphere. And because of that, there are these desires, too many thoughts and too many emotions. As we clear out all of this junk, spiritual junk from our atmosphere, the result is a beautiful silence. The Atma, the soul, is able to release the peace inside it. And then you feel, that's how I want to be all the time. I want to have this peace with me all the time. And then the work starts, or you may call it the study, to live in the state of soul consciousness. So we'll be doing a meditation in a few moments, but let me just hand back to Tanya at this point.
Thank you so much, Yogesh. What I think I've appreciated the most is that you are practically demonstrating what you are saying. And that has such an impact because it gives us the feeling that this is something we can do. And it's so important. I think we've all heard many talks. Many times, I think many of us have heard some of these ideas as well that were presented so precisely and with such simplicity and clarity. But more than anything, you have demonstrated it, and that example is very powerful. So at this point, I don't know if there's going to be any questions, but if you do have one, this is your moment. You are most welcome to type it in the chat. I have my trusty chat reader here. This is actually what I do with my thoughts, is I stick them in my phone and get them out of my head. But yes, the trusty phone. So we'll see if anything emerges, but I'm looking forward to part 2. I know we'll have a little bit of a break and also an experience before then. But, as I think over the points, just to wait to see if anything appears, this aspect of essence and economy, very appealing. I think more than anything, it's the appeal. Hopefully, on one side, maybe those temporary desires, but on the other side, and I think much heavier in the balance, is the appeal of all the attainments that await us in this silence and the quality of life. So that's what I was really especially taking. So let's see what we have here. How many times do I need to meditate during the day to reach this calm mind? Maybe you can speak to that. How many times do I need to meditate during the day to reach a calm mind?
Yeah, there's two things here. One is, of course, the kind of sitting down meditation, which I think you're referring to. And the other is living in the state of meditation, which I'd also mentioned. But in terms of sitting down meditation, if it's new for you, then one thing to be aware of is start with baby steps. Don't try to do too much too quickly. But certainly what is suggested is first thing in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, before you engage with life, first engage with yourself. Of course, be fresh, make sure you're awake, have a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you need. So morning meditation is very, very helpful because the morning is actually the foundation of the whole day. Then I'll just jump to the evening and I'll come back to the daytime. Morning meditation is like charging the battery of your soul, preparing for the day. evening meditation, for me, it's like taking a soul shower. Because during the day, you may have absorbed somebody's stress, or you maybe got irritated, or you saw something and it made you a bit upset. So what we don't want to do is to carry those emotions into sleep and into the next day. Therefore, evening meditation is also a must. And what's suggested, if this time works for you, is around between 6:30 to 7:30. Of course, your schedule may be different, but at least around half an hour, 20 minutes, just to kind of wash away those emotions or tendencies which you may have absorbed. Just like, if you come home after a long day, you may be sweaty, a bit tired, you take a nice shower and you feel, clean, fresh. So the evening meditation for me is like that, just cleaning the mind, and I'm free from the influences of the day. So those two, but then also during the day, as some of you will know, we do something called traffic control for the mind. And that's like a mini meditation, 3-minute meditation, one mid-morning, maybe 10:30, one mid-afternoon, maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock. And so that also just helps you to withdraw from the world of doing and just come to the world of being. So in that sense, just to summarize, 2 longer meditations, morning and evening, and then 2 mini meditations during the day. And I think that's a good framework for, helping you to maintain your inner peace and silence as you pass from day to day.
Great. Thank you so much, Yogesh. Actually, there's a couple more questions. Let's see if we can come to both of them. Mireille, I'll invite you to read it in French from the chat, and I will translate here. So sometimes I feel out of sync with my environment, my colleagues, society, because I don't like to I don't like to speak and say nothing really, but just for appearance sake. So sometimes I feel out of sync with my environment, my colleagues, society, because I don't want to talk when I have nothing to say, but only for the appearance of it. So one question. And the other, if I'm already a yogi and aware of soul consciousness, but have difficulty concentrating and actually enjoy sometimes overthinking because it's entertaining, more entertaining perhaps than lengthy moments in meditation. So that may be something you might be covering in the workshop portion, but that's the second question. So if it is something, maybe you'll be treating it in the second half, but that first one about, speaking just for appearance sake.
Yeah, second one I will take up in the second session. But the first one, what is the actual question there? I know the situation was described, but
I think
what actually is the question?
Perhaps how can one manage that? What would be your advice, or what kind of guidance can you give when we want to be that essence-full? We want to not speak necessarily, or we're feeling pressured to speak, to come into sound.
Yeah, I dig into my own experiences of this yogi life, or meditator's life. It's true. I mean, I also myself do prefer to remain quiet than to speak. More recently, speaking has become a role, let's say. I think the place to always start with is to be rooted in my self-respect. Excuse me. Always to be rooted in my self-respect, which means to be aware that my peace of mind, my happiness, my dignity, my honor belongs to me, my personal property, non-negotiable. And then if you're in that place of self-respect, then you're more easily able to discern what is needed to be said in a situation, how, and also when. So there are times when, people are speaking and you may be expected to say something as well. And maybe it's the right thing. If I don't say something, maybe people will consider it rude or antisocial. But I find if I'm in my self-respect, I'm better able to choose the words which are appropriate for that situation, which will make people satisfied. And it won't be too many words. It'll be coming from that space of clarity within me. And I won't feel drained. I won't feel tired or forced. And I think over the years, maybe not even years, but over time, people get to know you, that this person doesn't like to come into unnecessary chatter. But when she or he says something, it's meaningful. And people begin to value the quality of your words rather than the quantity. And I think they get used to it and they adjust themselves to that. And I do believe people value you more when you're coming from a space of quality rather than quantity. And it's for this that we have the phrase, in our study, that your life becomes like a diamond. Your words become like diamonds. Your thoughts become like diamonds, because then they're valuable for you, but also valuable for other people. So coming from self-respect, I think, is the beginning of how to handle this and actually any situation.
Thank you. That's beautifully said. And I have to say, quite true. So thank you for that. So now we're going to take a few minutes to have an experience of what you've shared with us, these jewels. And after that, following this meditation experience, there will be a pause, a short pause of about 5 minutes or so. And then we invite you to come back. And in silence, we'll be guided through some Qigong exercises. And so I think the body will appreciate that, because for the body, noise is tension. And lack of use sometimes can create that tension. So let's give our body an experience of the silence that can come through these beautiful movements we'll be guided through. So that will be probably about 5 after 11 or so. We'll have the exercises. But now I once again invite Yogesh to take us deeper and closer to those shores. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be speaking out a simple guiding commentary. So once again, it helps if you can have your back straight. And if you're in a chair, you can have your feet flat on the floor. Important to be relaxed, but also to be alert at the same time. And so this is a very simple beginner's experience to experience the peace which has always been there within the self. So I take these next few moments just to be with myself. The world outside of me is the world of sound, the world of movement, the world of action, the world of doing. And there is not much I can do about this outer world. But there is also a world within me, the world inside. And this is the world of my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences. And the world within me is in my own hands. So just bring your attention up towards your face. Bring your attention to the center of your forehead. And here, at the center of the forehead, picture a small room. And this tiny room in the center of the forehead is your quiet room of peace. Just visualize this very pleasant, quiet room of peace in the center of your forehead. This is your private and personal space. When you are inside your quiet room, you feel very relaxed. This is the place where you can be yourself. Inside your quiet room, you are safe. You are secure. And you can let go of your daily roles and responsibilities. inside your quiet room, you are free from the pressures and the demands of the outside world. Feel the peace and the wonderful silence of your quiet room. And just allow your mind to absorb this atmosphere of serenity, tranquility. And as you do so, the thoughts begin to slow down. The mind becomes calm, quiet, relaxed, peaceful, and free. Just be with this feeling for a few moments.
Qigong is practiced best in silence, in stillness, that is, keeping the mind still as we move the body. Take a moment and let's quiet our minds into our still point.
Welcome back. I hope everyone was able to take benefit from those deeply silent movements. Just check that the translation is okay. Perhaps you can let me know in the chat. Is the translation okay? Wonderful. Thanks so much. So now we will move into a more experiential, although the first part was, for me anyway, quite experiential. But now the workshop or experiential portion of today's program. And so inviting back our guide to take us much closer. Maybe we're at the shores and maybe we're going to dive right in now. I don't know. So I hand you over to most capable guide, Yogesh.
Thank you once again, Tanya. And let me say, I really feel I am together with all of you. It's wonderful to be in this energy with all of you together. And beautiful Qigong experience. Very, very nice. I was just reminded as I was watching the Qigong of this phrase, usually in the world of accomplishment, people say, don't just sit there, but do something. But for the life of the meditator or the yogi, it's the opposite. We say, don't just do something, but sit there. In other words, first sit in the right awareness, get your thoughts settled, be in your dignity, be in your swaman, in your self-respect, and then do. And I'd like to share very valuable words that I heard, when I was just entering my teens, and it really stays with me even now. And that is that the way to deal with any adverse situation is to first stabilize yourself in your self-respect, and then look at the situation. It's been so useful to me, because what we tend to do in the world of noise and quick accomplishment is we immediately, we dive into problem solving. Whether the problem is a situation or the problem is a person, we immediately try and fight the problem. But then when I heard this in one of our lessons, first stabilize in your self-respect. Remind yourself of this phrase, which Tanya has shared a few times, Om Shanti. We will look at that in a moment. Be rooted in your peace first. And then when you see the situation, yes, it's still a situation that I need to solve, but it's not bigger than me. And that's the wonder when we value the being part before we come into the doing. It's not about only being or only doing, but it's being-based doing. In other words, from silence, come into sound, but then learn how to go back into silence once again. And the quality of life is very, very different when we value the inner self first before we come into interaction. So, yeah, this is a little bit interactive part and experiential part. So I'm also happy if you have things to type and ask or comment. Let me just firstly put something up here and ask you a question. Okay, so question. What do you see? What do you see? And you can type your answer if you like.
A spiral.
Spiral, yes, okay. Anybody else like to answer? Un spiral, virtuous circle, labyrinth, way to go inside, way, okay. Très bien, très bien. Coming back to ourselves. Target, okay. Okay, so a number of interesting answers, creative answers. And sometimes people say, yeah, thumbprint, space between the lines, infinity. Yeah, many creative answers. And people say that sometimes I see eternity, or I see, I see the abyss. Some say that. Some say I see a cinnamon roll. Some say I see a jalebi, for those who know that Indian type of sweet. So many answers are there, but there is a but. And that is that all the answers which are given are generally about this image. And nobody mentions there's also all this empty, wide, available space as well. And so what happens is that when a person's vision goes to the image, that becomes their whole world. And in other words, what you see will influence what you think about. And what you think about will generate how you feel. How you feel will drive how you behave, how you interact, the relationships you form. And all of that creates your life, your reality, your world. So here was just an example using the physical eyes. But the point that I'm making here is to do with the eye of the mind. An important thing to remember is no matter what situation I may be in, or what the person in front of me may be like, what I choose to see in that is in my own hands. And this is very important for taking care of the mind, making the mind silent, keeping it healthy, keeping my thought quality high. I'll just repeat those 5 steps. What you see will influence what you think about, your creative thinking. Your thinking will determine or generate your thought, your feelings. What you see, your thinking, your feelings. The way you feel will drive your behavior, who you spend time with, where you go, the relationships you form. And all of that then leads to your life, your reality. So where does it all start? Everything starts with what you choose to see. And hence there is this very, very beautiful phrase in Hindi. Many of you would know it. Jaisi aapki drishti, vaisi aapki srishti. So as is your vision, so is your world. And it's a sentence I keep with myself all the time in any situation, what does the eye of my mind choose to see? Even if there's criticism in front of me or towards me, even if there's failure, I still have a choice what I wish to see in that situation and the meaning I give to it. Now, it is only when we have this inner silence that we're able to choose what we wish to see. When the mind is racing, we misinterpret everything. When the mind is quiet, I can have proper perspective of a situation, and therefore my response can be proportional. So many benefits to maintaining this state of inner silence. Now, somebody had asked before the break about the mind and entertainment and having lots of thoughts. Well, it's actually a very valid point to look at. And that is that I need to know the need of my mind at any moment. So, for example, if there's a moment where your mind feels like being entertained, and if at that time you say to yourself, Om Shanti, I am peaceful, it's incompatible, it doesn't fit. The mind will reject that because it's looking for entertainment. It's rather like if a person is crawling through the desert, parched, thirsty, desperate for water, and he happens to come across your restaurant in the desert, and you offer that person a lovely 5-course meal. He'll say, well, thanks very much, but I really need water. So one needs to know the need of the mind and supply that. So if the mind wants entertainment, then even in your meditation, it's a time to keep the mind occupied with spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding. So for those of you who have done, for example, the introductory course in Raj Yoga meditation, if my mind wants entertainment, at that time, allow the mind to think over the things you have studied so far. And through that, it will remain engaged, and it's better to think those spiritual, elevated thoughts rather than wasteful thoughts and unnecessary thoughts. So this is where, one has to be a good mother to the mind and develop very good parenting skills to be able to keep one step ahead of the mind, to know what the mind wants. And here we introduce the second faculty of our consciousness. We have the mind, but also we have the intellect. The mind is the child, intellect is the parent. So generally for most, the intellect is weak and the mind is wild, is a wild child. So imagine a wild child and a weak parent going to the shopping mall together. What's going to happen? I want this, get me that, I need the other, I want that. And the weak parent, okay, dear, okay, that's okay, I'll get that. So the mind is bossing the intellect. But the job of the intellect actually is to be the parent of the mind. So we don't want to suppress the mind, we don't beat the mind, but we want to empower the intellect, give it strength, such that when it speaks to the mind begins to listen and understand, okay, I need to pay attention here. And a big part of Raja Yoga meditation is this empowering the buddhi, or the intellect. Now, what we're going to be doing a little in this session is also some exercises in experiencing the stage of soul consciousness. As I mentioned earlier, there's all this spiritual junk we've placed inside the soul, which is all connected with our physical identity. And the main work we need to do is to get that junk out. That junk is all different forms of darkness. And as is the beautiful saying, do not shout at the darkness, but switch on the light. In other words, bring into your awareness thoughts about the true self. Dwell on them, practice them, experience them, and the light will spread through your awareness and the junk will be dispelled. So before we do those exercises, a couple more models to show you. We'd mentioned the ego in the earlier part. So this shows us the world of ego masks within which we basically live. So this rectangle here represents your awareness. Now, what has happened to us over time, and this is the cause of all the inner noise, is we have developed these ego masks, represented by these small I's. I am this, my nationality. I am so-and-so. My religion. I am XYZ, the race, the color of the body. I am this and this. Qualifications, achievements, talents, all these things we mentioned about doing and having. So all these pockets of identity, or I'm calling them as ego masks, they're all kind of floating around in our awareness. Some are smaller, some are a little bigger. And the size of that ego mask just depends on how much you feed it, how much time you give to it. That's how big the ego mask becomes. And then what happens is, as you go through the day-to-day life, sometimes you experience a threat or an attack on one of your ego masks. For example, somebody insults you, somebody disrespects you, somebody tries to belittle you. And the result of that is an emotional reaction. Now, emotional reaction is not just noise of the mind, but it's like an explosion of emotional energy. And the bigger the ego mask is, the bigger is the emotional reaction. These emotional reactions are not just necessarily verbal, but they could just be even in your own mind. You may not say something, but just this emotion of upset or anger could be there. So all of this is noise and confusion in the mind. We want to be free from that. So how to do it? How to deal with these ego masks? Well, the good news is you don't have to. All there is to do is to go to the light, go to truth. And so this diagram here is showing us that underneath all of these ego masks is the true self. The ego masks here, there's another layer of truth underneath, which we may call as my original self, my true self, I, the soul, I, the spirit, I, the eternal being of light. And so within this original self, I, the soul, there are already these qualities of love, peace, joy, purity, strength, etc. So the thing to do is to stop living as a label, as those worldly labels of nationality, race, etc., etc., and to start living as the eternal self. Through the day, living in the awareness, I am a peaceful soul. What does Om Shanti mean, which we heard? It doesn't just mean hello or goodbye, but Om, the word Om refers to I, the eternal self. Not the small i's, but the capital I, the eternal self. So first, when I land upon my eternal identity, I, the soul, I, the spiritual energy, when I'm rooted in my true identity, then the natural result is Shanti emerges. Shanti is peace, Shanti is stillness, Shanti is silence. These three things together. And so this really is the key and is the first step in self-realization. I am a soul and my nature is peace. And we have just to work on this, practice this again and again and again, and notice how this beautiful peace, like a golden light, emerges from inside and fills your consciousness. I remember many years ago when asking one of our senior yogis, how can I maintain an inner state of silence and peace naturally? And he said, for 3 days, just practice this in a very attentive way. I am a peaceful soul. Keep that awareness. It's nothing to do with anybody else. When I'm walking, eating, whatever you're doing, just be aware of yourself as the light in the forehead, doing the actions through the body, through your arms and your legs. And I feel that we need to really focus upon this first lesson in Raja Yoga, because this is also the last lesson. Now, when we do meditation, which you're going to do now, one of the main complaints most people have is, my concentration is not so good. How can I improve my concentration? Now, before meditation comes concentration. If we try to jump too quickly to meditation without building up our concentration, meditation will be wishy-washy. It'll be half meditation and half, thinking other things. So before meditation comes concentration. Before concentration comes contemplation and visualization. These two things together, contemplation and visualization, when they come together, it creates concentration. Concentration leads to meditation, which is experience. So we need to do concentration exercises in order to develop this muscle of being able to keep a thought or an image within the mind. So let's do a few very simple exercises now. These will just be like 1 or 2 minute exercises. Simple visualizations. So I would suggest for this particular exercise, set of exercises, you may wish to close your eyes. Okay? So I'll just give you an image, and I'll just ask you to hold that image on the screen of your mind. Okay, so here comes the first one. So just visualize your forehead as a cave. Your forehead is a cave. And in the middle of this cave, there is a candle burning. A candle of peaceful energy, a peaceful flame gently burning in the center of this cave, the forehead. So just be with this image of the candle of peace and the center of the forehead, this cave. Just be with this image for a few moments. Okay, thank you. So how was your concentration? You're able to hold that image? Did other thoughts come about other things? You may find thoughts come about what I have to do later, something that happened, but it's okay. We have to work on building up the muscle of concentration. Just like, physically, if your muscles are strong, you can hold something up for a while without getting tired. The stronger the muscle is, the greater is the resilience. Same way, developing concentration power is connected to being able to hold that image or that thought in the mind. See how long I can just stay with that. Okay, now we come to the second one. Again, you may just wish to close your eyes. And so this time, bring the image of a diamond of light in the center of the forehead. Beautiful, sparkling, valuable, living diamond of light in the center of the forehead. Radiating this energy, light. Just be with this image of the living diamond. for a few moments. Okay, thank you. So how do you feel now? How is your concentration now? You may find still some waste thoughts are coming, but better, yes, better. Definitely with practice, it becomes better, stronger. The ability to choose. I want to think this only. As the inner self becomes stronger, the mind begins to listen and cooperate. The thing is, see, the more you experience these qualities, especially of peace, self-love, the heart becomes full. When the heart is full, the mind becomes silent. When the mind is silent, your intellect becomes very clear. You can think very clearly. Heart is full, mind becomes silent. Mind is silent, intellect becomes clear. How to make the heart full? Releasing these qualities which are dormant inside the soul. As we looked at earlier in that, that circle, that peace, that love, that joy, that purity, strength, releasing them. So meditation is just, I'm reminding myself of that excellence which is within my own self and releasing it. Okay, now we come to third image. Once again, you can just close your eyes. So this time, bring to the center of your forehead the image of a lighthouse. Big, strong, sturdy, very powerful lighthouse in the center of the forehead. And from here, from the center of the forehead, I radiate the light of peace in all directions. Just be with this image. I radiate this white light of peace from the center of the forehead as a lighthouse of peace. Be with this for a few moments. And now staying with this image. Now, this lighthouse, this time I radiate the energy of love. So these rays of pure, divine, spiritual love, you may visualize as red in color, radiating from the center of my forehead in all directions, across the room you are in, across the city. These rays reach out across the country, across the oceans, enveloping the world. This pure, divine, selfless, spiritual love. Be with this image for a few moments. And now, again, staying with the lighthouse image. The last one. This time I radiate the energy of pure joy, pure, innocent joy from this living lighthouse. I radiate that joy which spreads around the world, touching every person, the animal kingdom, Mother Nature. I spread this pure energy of divine and innocent joy. Just be with this image for a few moments. Okay, thank you. So I'm hoping these exercises were meaningful and useful for you. And if they were, try to build them into your daily life. Anytime you find, especially you have a few spare moments waiting for something or someone, just do these exercises for the mind, concentration exercises. And as concentration improves, not only your meditation will improve, but everything in your life. your people skills, listening skills, understanding skills, decision-making skills, memory, everything improves. Because the human soul is the most powerful energy in this world. And when we are in this mode of sharing these pure divine energies with the world, it really helps the whole planet, the whole world, but also it helps us as well. And also creativity comes to it. Like was mentioned earlier, sometimes the mind wants entertainment. These creative exercises help to engage the entertainment need of the mind. And as you become a bit more experienced, then by yourself, you create other images, other forms of how you can direct your thought energy. What is visualization? It's simply a way to direct your thought energy. And life anyway is a game of thoughts. So the more I work with thought energy positively, spiritually, constructively, good for me, good for my body, good for all the people in my life, and it's also a contribution towards the world as well. So coming towards a wrap up here.
Again, I appreciate the simplicity. It was very early on and you kind of alluded to it, but we all know that if we want to have anything progress in terms of our meditation, if we want to experience any kind of achievement or attainment there, we have to practice. This is something that it's like it's an atrophied muscle. So it's not even that it's a bit weak, but it could have been even damaged. And that requires such care, attention, and consistent practice. So these are wonderful, simple exercises and that are for the mind to redevelop. And I absolutely agree. The concentration is essential. And it has been compromised. Although we all know that in certain domains, someone who has no ability to concentrate in one area can for some reason concentrate somewhere else. So clearly we need to be extremely interested in the attainments from these exercises so that we will do them and get the benefit. So I think at this point, I don't think we had any questions geared. I think if you want us to take us deeper into experience, there's an opportunity for meditation at this point. I don't know if we have any queries that have emerged. But there's some lovely comments. I don't know if you're seeing these. Okay, so there's a very long one in French that I might just... So very rich experiences. I think this person might be leaving. Very much appreciate the exercises, the translation, the experiences, the sweetness, the gentleness of those experiences. Really taking a lot. Oh, this is from Nelly. So you probably know Nelly. So I think we just want more. At this point, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
And there she is. Om Shanti, Nelly. So I will leave it over to you then, and you can take us into our, I guess, final experience, but of course, the gateway to more experiences following this program. Thanks again.
Okay, so once again, just to make sure you're alert, comfortable, back straight. And I'll just guide you into another meditation. And if it helps, you can use the image in front of you of this, the sun and the water. And so in this meditation, I want to be with myself. I want to know myself. I want to experience my true self. And so I start by asking myself, who am I? Behind the roles I play every day, who am I? Behind the labels I carry, who am I? Behind the masks I wear, who am I? There is more to me than these roles, these labels, these masks and responsibilities. And when I look in the mirror, I see the reflection of my face, my body. But there is more to me than simply this. And so I bring my attention up towards my face, and up to the center of the forehead. And here I picture a beautiful star of peaceful light. A wonderful star sparkling in the center of the forehead. And from this star, waves of peaceful and healing energy radiate throughout my body. Sending this peace, this calmness to every part of the body. This beautiful star of living light in the center of the forehead. This is me. This is I, the eternal soul. I the soul. I am light. I, the soul. I am eternal. I can never die. I, the soul. I am non-physical, spiritual energy. And deep within me, there has always been a reservoir of peace. This peace is my truest and my deepest natural state. I remind myself I am peace. I am light. I am eternal. I am silent. I am free. Peace, light, eternal, silent, free. Just be with this feeling for 1 minute. Okay, thank you.
It's difficult to break that sweet silence, but I will come into sound to express a hearty thank you. We have gone far beyond the shores of silence, and I believe we have gone deep into the ocean of silence. Bring back Yogesh. Don't take him away. Don't leave me alone. Bring him back, yes. So much appreciation. I think you're seeing some in the chat. There's quite a bit. Please, I invite everyone to share your thoughts. And really, you know, I think the greatest way we can, of course, express that thanks is to continue to make this part of our lives, to really benefit. As I had mentioned before, it wasn't just the words, but also the example, the practical form. And it is very empowering when it's not just words, but also the vibrations. And so a huge thank you on behalf of us all for this opportunity to return to shores perhaps we have been away from for far too long, from that ocean that is in fact essential to our well-being, and that silence that is oxygen, that is our nature. So I certainly enjoyed the opportunity to really bathe, if you will, to soak in this essence of myself and to be able to appreciate. Don't we all love ourselves when we reconnect to the peace, the silence? You know, we experience the beauty of the self. It's very nourishing to that self-esteem, to that feeling of value and dignity. So just so many treasures. And that we want to, of course, continue to accumulate and invest in our lives as we continue forward. So to continue in this vein of thanks, not only do we have the words, but we have also some images and more words in the form of that traditional way we like to thank, and that is blessings. So don't go away. Please stay, and we have some special blessings for everyone. Lean will guide us through those now. So, I forgot to mention, sorry, there is a process. You'll be seeing some images, and maybe we can go to those right now. And so choose your favorite form of transport on those sweet waters of silence. So choose. And once you have your choice, what will follow are the blessings that go with it. And so you will have chosen the blessing that will be perfect for you today. So going to the first one and over to you, Lean.
So for the first blessing, with your practice of going into deep silence, you have gained the power to see all situations as an opportunity to learn. Avec la pratique d'aller dans les profondeurs du silence, tu as acquis la capacité de voir les situations comme des occasions pour grandir. For the second, number 2, you dive into silence and look at your spiritual values. In that space, remedies to problems can be found and happiness can come. Tu plonges dans le silence et observes tes valeurs spirituelles. C'est dans cet espace que les solutions aux problèmes émergent et que le bonheur arrive. And for the third blessing, number 3, you are constantly cheerful and carefree. In deep silence, you can easily experience victory by making your faith unshakable. Tu es constamment joyeux et sans souci. Et dans un profond silence, tu expérimentes facilement la victoire. Ta foi est inébranlable. And the last one, number 4. You are contented soul who constantly remains connected to your inner silence, overflowing with all spiritual attainments. Âme contentée, tu restes connecté à ton silence intérieur, débordant de toutes les acquisitions. And we have one special one for Yogesh, especially for you, with so much gratitude. You are an angel of serenity that radiates from a sense of knowing. You are loving, loveful, and loved. Your heart is unlimited. Et pour Yogesh, tu es l'ange de la sérénité dont le rayonnement vient du sentiment de savoir que tu es aimant, empli d'amour et aimé. Ton cœur est illimité. Om Shanti.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Lynn. Again, thank you, Yogesh. I don't know if you have any last words for us.
A big thanks from my side as well. And we're all flying together. You know, when we pay attention to ourselves, we also encourage each other. Mm-hmm. So let's just keep flying, keep moving ahead, and reach our, open our wings fully as the soul bird.
Wonderful. So all of these wonderful angels who made this program possible, and of course, all of you, because it would be a little bit different if you weren't there as well. So as always, your participation is so appreciated. When we come together, it's so much more powerful than when we're studying alone, or we're practicing, or we're experiencing alone. So the power of the gathering, we know, is so, so helpful. So thank you for your presence. And to let you know that you can continue to explore this, we have an experience of silence and meditation every Sunday evening. So tomorrow, every Sunday evening from 7 to 8, we have the oasis of peace. So an opportunity to dive into that peace that we're all so thirsty for and experience the beauty of our true self, the soul. So that's every Sunday. And also to let you know that coming up, we'll be having our annual celebration for Christmas, Noel, and that will be on the 15th. And you are most warmly invited to come to the center. Of course, we can still only accept those who are fully vaccinated, but of course, we would love to see you. Last year, we could not have people present at the center. So this year will be really, I think, a great enjoyment for us to welcome you, but we'll be online as well for that. So those are one ongoing activity and one special activity coming up this month in December. So also just to mention, some were asking about whether they can see the recording, that the program has been recorded. And so it will be appearing on our YouTube channel soon, very soon, as well as the French recording, so that both languages will be available. And so you can look for us at Brahmakumaris Montreal on YouTube. Also on Facebook, a great way to keep track of our activities. There's also our website that you can find easily, again, with Brahmakumaris Montreal. And there you'll also have an opportunity if you wish to support our future programming. There's an opportunity there to make online donations. So those are most appreciated. And I guess that really, it's always so difficult. We want to just stay together forever, don't we? Anyway, we will come back together. We'll have an opportunity to enjoy each other's company very soon.